really important as we try to work amongst the poor to ask ourselves the question, what is poverty? Because how we diagnose the problem determines the solutions that we use to alleviate the problem. This is the issue. Most North Americans think of poverty as a lack of material things, so our solutions tend towards providing material things for people. There's sometimes a role for that, but over the long haul, people are going to need far more and far different kinds of help than that, because human beings are not fundamentally just material robots. We're whole people, and God has wired us for relationship. What the fall of humanity has done, what the fall into sin has done, is broken the fundamental relationships that human beings have with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the rest of creation. So what poverty alleviation is about is walking with the materially poor in ways that bring restoration to those four key relationships. A relational approach to poverty is completely different from a purely material approach to poverty alleviation. Once we conceive of human beings as being fundamentally relational, and as poverty as being rooted in the brokenness in those key relationships with God, self, others, and the rest of creation, we start to discover that we ourselves are poor because none of us are experiencing those relationships in the way that God intended. North Americans, we have a lot of stuff, but we still are experiencing profound brokenness in each of those four key relationships. And it bubbles up in our lives in all different kinds of ways. But there's all kinds of evidence right now that Western civilization isn't working that well. I teach at a college, and one of the things we're noticing amongst our young people, these are great Christian young people. I love them. They're godly, and they minister to me in profound ways. But we're noticing an incredible explosion of mental illness amongst our young people. And it's a national trend. And there's research going on that suggests that that's a manifestation of something. It's a manifestation of a loss of relationship, a loss of connectedness in our society to communities of love and of peace and of shalom. And so we're experiencing brokenness too. It's been profound in my own life. I'm a workaholic. And it's kind of interesting. All through school, I was always getting the best grades, always the top of my class. And if you'd asked me, I would have said, I'm trying to develop my gifts and my abilities to glorify God. And there's truth in that. That's part of who I am. But there's other parts of it too. There's parts about control. There's parts about perfectionism. There's parts about needing affirmation that really enslave me to work. And so I need Jesus to heal me too. It's fantastic that the North American church wants to help, but once we think of poverty as being rooted in broken relationships with God, self, others, and the rest of creation, suddenly you've got to realize you can't solve poverty in a week. It's going to take a long-term relational approach, addressing people's deep needs and changing the systems that those people are embedded in. They're often very oppressive. You can't do that in a week. You simply can't. So is there a role for short-term missions? Well, I would say there's a role for short-term trips. I don't think we should probably use the word missions. I think if we used a different posture, instead we're going to go on short-term trips, and those trips could be trips that are learning experiences in which we go and learn from the poor, we go and learn from the local people. That can be very transformative. I also think we can think of them as trips to partner well with organizations and churches that are on the ground there, supporting them because they're the ones who are engaged in frontline ministry over the long haul. It's the local church and local ministries flowing out of the life of the local church that are going to make the difference over the long haul. And so we can support that, but it's a backstage role. It's a role that we don't want to play. We want to be front and center. We think we're the answer. It's a role that kind of is a little less visible or perhaps even invisible.